determined by the standing rules and orders of the municipal council. A councillor may also be removed from office as a councillor, should he or she be absent from 3 or more consecutive meetings of a municipal council. A councillor may also be removed from office should he or she be absent from 3 or more consecutive committee meetings in which such councillor is required to attend. Where a councillor is fined or removed for not attending council meetings or committee meetings, proceedings for imposing such fine or the removal of such a councillor must be done in accordance with a uniform standing procedure. The Code of Conduct also requires a councillor to disclose any direct or indirect personal or private business interest that the councillor, or his or her spouse, or partner, or business associate of such councillor may have in any matter to be deliberated before the municipal council or committee. Should a councillor have an interest, whether directly or indirectly, such councillor is required to withdraw from the proceedings of the council or committee when that matter is considered by the council or committee, unless the municipal council or committee decides that the councillor's direct or indirect interest in such a matter is trivial or irrelevant. A councillor is further required to disclose full particulars of any benefit which the councillor is aware of, which may be as a result of any contract concluded with the municipality. This also applies to benefits received by the spouse of the councillor, or the partner of the councillor, or a business associate of the councillor, or close family member of the councillor. Speaking of disclosures, councillors are also required to declare any of the following financial interests within 60 days of being elected or appointed. This includes shares and securities in any company, membership of any close corporation, interest in any trust, directorships, partnerships, other financial interests in any business undertaking, employment and remuneration, interest in property, pensions, subsidies, grants, and sponsorships by any organization. These financial interests must be declared to the municipal manager in writing. Should there be any change in the nature or detail of the financial interests, the councillor must declare such, in writing, to the municipal manager, on an annual basis. Councillors are also required to declare any gifts received, which may be above a prescribed amount. The Code of Conduct also prescribes that a councillor may not use his or her position or privilege as a councillor, or use confidential information obtained as a councillor for private gain or to improperly benefit another person. A councillor is further prohibited from being a party to or a beneficiary of any contract entered into by any municipality or by any municipal entity. The Code of Conduct also prescribes that all full-time councillors are prohibited from undertaking any other paid work, except with the consent of a municipal council. Such consent may not be unreasonably withheld by the municipal council. A councillor may not request, solicit, or accept any reward, gift, or favour for voting or not voting in a particular manner on any matter before the municipal council or before a committee of which that councillor is a member of. A councillor may also not request, solicit, or accept any reward, gift, or favour for persuading the council or any committee in the council regarding the exercise of any power, function, or duty. A councillor may further not request, solicit, or accept any reward, gift, or favour for making any representation to the council or any committee of the council. A councillor may also not request, solicit, or accept any reward, gift, or favour for disclosing privileged or confidential information. A councillor may also not disclose any privileged or confidential information of the council or committee to any unauthorized person without the permission of the municipal council or a committee. The Code of Conduct further prescribes that a councillor may not, unless required by law, interfere in the management or administration of any department of the municipal council. Unless mandated by the council, a councillor may also not give, or purport to give, any instruction to any employee of the municipality. except when authorized to do so. A councillor may also not obstruct, or attempt to obstruct, the implementation of any decision of the council, or a committee, by an employee of the municipality. A councillor may also not encourage, or participate in any conduct, which would result in, or contribute to, any maladministration, in the municipality. A councillor may not use, or take, or acquire, or benefit, from any property, or asset owned by, or controlled by, or managed by, the municipality, to which that councillor has no right. The Code of Conduct further prescribes that, a councillor may not be in arrears, with any municipality rates, and service charges, for a period longer than 3 months. Where the councillor has breached or suspected to have breached the Code of Conduct, it is prescribed that, the Speaker of the Municipal Council, is empowered to authorize an investigation of the facts and circumstances of the alleged breach. The Speaker is thereafter required to give the councillor a reasonable opportunity to reply, in writing, regarding the alleged breach. The Speaker is also required to report such a matter to a municipal council meeting. The Speaker must also report the outcome of the investigation to the MEC responsible for local government in the province. The Speaker must further ensure that each councillor is given a copy of the Code of Conduct, and also ensure that a copy of the Code is available in every room or place where the council meets. In conclusion, the 2021 amendments aim to 1. Strengthen the Code of Conduct for municipal councillors. 2. Legislate the attendance of a number of meetings by councillors. 3. Require councillors to reject any gifts or favours. The 2021 amendments also require councillors to disclose to council certain financial interest, as well as prohibit councillors from serving as councillors for a period of 2 years, should they be found guilty for breaking the Code of Conduct. This has been yet another video in Public Administration 101. Proudly brought to you by Karno Consultants. For professional advice you can trust.
Local government is where democracy, service delivery, and government policy meet the community. Municipal councillors are elected representatives of their local communities, are accountable to them, and must report on the performance of the municipality at least quarterly. Despite representing different political affiliations, councillors should work together in the interest of their municipality and community. The Municipal Council makes policies and bylaws, monitors implementation, and intervenes or takes corrective actions when necessary. The Speaker, as chairperson of the Municipal Council, upholds the basic rules applicable to all councillors and ensures that councillors follow the Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct in Schedule 7 of the Local Government Municipal Structures Act, amended in 2021, requires that councillors behave in a responsible, transparent, and effective manner. Councillors should act in good faith with honesty and transparency, attend all council and committee meetings, declare within 60 days after appointment and annually in writing to the municipal manager all financial interests such as shares, directorships, business interests, sponsorships, and so forth. Councillors may not vote in favour of a resolution which conflicts with legislation applicable to local government, be in arrears to the municipality for rates and services charges for more than 3 months, benefit from property owned, controlled, or managed by the municipality, use their positions, privileges, or confidential information obtained for private gain or to improperly benefit another person, benefit under a contract for the provision of goods or services to the municipality, request, solicit, or accept rewards, gifts, or favours for voting or not voting in a particular manner, undertake other paid work if a full-time councillor without the consent of the municipal council, interfere with the municipality's management, administration, obstruct the implementation of decisions, and cause maladministration. Breaching the code, carry carries serious consequences, including the removal of councillors, prohibiting them from standing as candidates for any municipal council for 2 years. The Code of Conduct is instrumental in ensuring that councillors fulfill their duties. Any member of the public should report breaches or suspected breaches of the Code of Conduct to the Speaker of the Municipal Council.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to every person that is on the screen. What I'm going to request is that I see Yvonne Lambert has a video on. I'm going to then request that every single person on the Zoom that they please then switch off their videos. Please turn off your videos. That could obviously interfere with the concentration of other members of the meeting. So then if you can do that for us, we greatly appreciate that. And what I'm going to then say is that this meeting is that I'm going to obviously present to you, the residents, and give feedback as legislated by government, to say that I am then asked to give feedback as to the work of council, what has been done in raising the issues that affect you, the residents, as well as the plans going forward. Some of these things, what we then do with this information is then we want to then make sure that we attend to that. So we're glad to see Lauren. If she can, thanks for switching off your video, Lauren. But we're glad to see you and have you in the meeting tonight as well. So that is what we're going to do. I'm going to then ask that we stay muted at all times. There will be time for questions and comments from yourselves. We did have a little bit of a glitch. What I'm going to do is that we're using a different Facebook page this evening. Although we're using a different Facebook page, is because there was a bit of a glitch that I just literally encountered as I was literally going about to go live. So I had to, think on my feet and use an alternative page. So do apologize for publishing which page it was going to be, and then now we are using a different page. It's only because there was a late amendment, if I can call it that. There was a late amendment in terms of which Facebook page we then use, but the intent is still the same, is to still engage with residents from both yourself here on the Zoom platform, as well as any residents where they elsewhere, from residents that are on the Zoom platform, as well as residents that are probably on the Facebook page. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that everyone also on the Zoom page has an opportunity to take part by form of questions, but then also everybody on the Facebook page can then use. We see D is already on the Facebook page. D Statro is on the Facebook page. So I encourage you to post the questions or comments on the comments page, and during the meeting I will, when I'm looking down, it's not because I'm ignoring everyone on the Zoom call, it's just to make sure that I see what's going on the Zoom page as well. So without any waste of time, I am then going to officially open this meeting, and I'm going to start with a moment of silence for prayer and meditation as you see fit on your side. Thank you. Thank you very much. So this public meeting takes place obviously at the time that council has, the last meeting that we've had was to give residents an update on the budget, the draft budget as it was at the time is, unfortunately, by the time we had the meeting, the comment had then closed. But what I did as the ward council of the area is make sure that I capture through the ward committee as well as other residents that then came forward to then raise issues and say and state how the budget should then serve them and what are the key factors that they then look at in terms of the budget. So on that regard, so I would then like to then say that in terms of that regard, what we're going to do is that I'm going to cover some of the issues that were raised then, as well as what they have been done. I'm going to also cover what has been on the IDP and what the reasons why it's been there and the plans going forward. I'm also going to give an update on some of the issues that have been raised with me as the ward councillor that affect residents of the area. So starting off with the budget. So when the budget was presented, I think when I spoke to the ward committee, it was shared among the ward committees as well as some of the residents that, look, when it comes to the rates and taxes, the increased rates and taxes, we all understand that, you know, every year everything costs a little bit more than the previous year. However, there was a strong indication and emphasis on saying it is no use making us pay more while we continue to have services that are below our expectations. As an example, one of the issues that we've then been dealing with for a long time, and even raising with council for a long time, is the issue of streetlights. Now, on the issue of streetlights, I want to also unpack a few steps that were then taken in addressing this matter. So the matter of the streetlights, how it was attempted to be addressed, is that the first step was to obviously refer it to the department. So the departments received all the streetlights that were reported at a periodic time. And obviously when streets then became more, we then reported those. But then because this was an issue where the council was not reporting back or giving feedback within the stipulated time or addressing these streetlights within the stipulated turnaround times, what I then did is then I had then written to the then MMC for energy, when energy was still with water and sanitation, that is Tembim Sane, to then say, look, MMC, I think firstly, just before Tembi, I do apologize. It was MMC Manamela, who I then raised with him to say, MMC, what needs to be done here is we need to obviously intervene to make sure that all the streetlights that are then falling behind are then attended to. So unfortunately, the MMC was then changed and obviously followed the same process with the new MMC. Unfortunately, on both sides, we were obviously waiting for responses. I'm still waiting for responses, but then I've also implored them through questions to council to then say there is an issue on here, which also the issue that I then raised was also tied to the response times of council. So this was emanating from a report from the executive, that is all the mayor's executive committee, that then reported that the issues that are reported, are attended to within a specified time. It is issues that are then, only at, I think for energy as an example, it was at least 19% or 20% at the time. So obviously that is a low turnaround, if I can call it that. That is a very low percentage of addressing all issues that are then referred to the department. So what we want to then be doing is that then I then ask in particular the MMC for corporate at the time, who now happens to be the executive mayor, then said, look, MMC, please explain why we then have this problem. What is concerning is that, and you would have noticed that not only with streetlights, but every other service delivery issue, is that we then have a scenario where you then get a report or an SMS that says the issue has been resolved, the issue is now closed. According to the council, the matter is now, closed, and they're not going to continue with it. But you are still, in terms of your lived experience, you are still looking at either a sewer overflow or either a streetlight that's still not working, but the issue has then been closed. Then I then asked the MMC, so please explain why this is then happening, because that obviously is giving you the wrong numbers. So the claim was that the turnaround time, firstly, the reporting is due to a glitch in the system, which they could not substantiate as to how that glitch affects that. The other reason is that, for example, the roads department, as well as the energy department, roads, firstly, they do not have enough equipment or trucks that can then go around and fill every pothole that was then reported, especially during the summer season where the rains were more perpetual at that time. So that's what obviously put a strain on the department, or that's the response that the department gave. And in terms of the streetlights that I was obviously I'm referring to, is that the department does not have enough globes, doesn't have budget for globes. Now, this is obviously a concern for me, and this is what was then included in the comments from Ward 38 to the city to then say, look, we are getting a new budget. We have a problem with these things. We see that you are, trying to address everything. So we then asked that the city then looks into, or invests time into increasing the maintenance budget. So what this means is that when we call for the increasing of the maintenance budget, is to make sure that we don't actually ever find ourselves in a situation that 3 quarters into the financial year, that the last quarter we don't have funds to actually deliver services. Because if I can give an example, such as a service such as streetlights, which has a direct impact on, which literally has an impact on the on the safety of residents, is that obviously that then becomes not just only that you have dark streets, but you also have a situation where the safety of residents is then compromised. Then obviously that's what makes it more critical to address. Then on the other side of the roads is because obviously most of you, or just about all of you, we drive around, and obviously we were trying to protect, avoid having to pay accesses onto, replacing new tires because of a pothole. So those are the things that you then looking at why we address these issues, and we are asking council to make sure that there's an increased maintenance budget that will then allow us to be then to attend to every single issue that is then raised from the community. Is that once we increase the budget, we then we are then in a position of saying, okay, we've now increased the budget. Now we are going to get into a space whereby we then hold you to account with what you do with the budget. So in terms of that, what was then done is what was then done in that regard is that we had a scenario where I saw in the budget that our comments were then captured. I did say to somebody today in a meeting, I said, you know, the one thing that I would like to see going forward that council then does is that when we do public participation, like for example, this meeting is a form or is one of the tools that we use as council or myself as a councillor to publicly participate, to encourage public participation, is that when we think through the matters of public participation, what we then do is then say, all right, we have public participation. So what we are going to then be doing is that we must have a feedback mechanism, which currently we don't have. And that was one of my inputs to say, let us develop, and I will also myself as a councillor, that's something that I can push forward to say, let's have a feedback mechanism. As much as I can see on the budget that our comments were captured, but we don't know whether they were included or they could action our request or not. Now, now while on the issue of the budget, I want to also include that on our budget, we have several IDP. In fact, we have 5 IDP points that are then requested. So the first one, which is the top priority, has been the top priority for several years, is the sewer infrastructure upgrade. So we then calling for council to then say, right, we want obviously the sewer infrastructure to be upgraded in Ward 38. The secondly, we it's not necessarily in this order, but we also have the upgrade of Kalkunki Park into being a regional park. Now, most of you would remember that, especially if you live closer to Kalkunki Park, is that you then know that Kalkunki Park was then recently upgraded, and with the upgrades to the park, which includes grass stands as well as that. So the problem is that while we would want the community to enjoy using braai facilities at the park, the problem then becomes that we now have a challenge whereby you know, there's no ablution facilities. And according to council policy, things such as parks, you can only put tap waters as well as ablution facilities where obviously the park is a regional park. Hence, the request to make Kalkunki Park a regional park so that we then can make sure that it is enjoyed with the intent that it was then upgraded for. Where, I mean, unfortunately, like while residents could use it in the beginning, the problem then became that, you know, other unsavory characters started, you know, seeing opportunity because the public was not openly there, and you know, it went the other way from the intent that it was then upgraded for. So what we are then trying to do is to say, let's also do that. We've also requested for the installation of cameras that will then monitor speed traffic control. You'd know the reason why we included cameras in particular is because that is another form of, sorry, I beg your pardon, that is another form of traffic calming, because we are then able to then monitor speed on our roads, how fast motorists do drive. While I do understand that, and a lot of residents, when they speak traffic calming, they speak speed humps. Now, I've always used an example to say that, you know, when you do say, and that's speaking of speak it out, which is fun. However, the problem that I've then identified with the speed hump is that the fact of the matter is that we then have a scenario whereby a person can drive for a long, you know, in high speed for some time and then slow down at the speed hump. So we then obviously need to look at other things. Hence, we have cameras. So therefore, then we then want to then say the fact of the matter is that we then also have another item. I'm just trying to think of what. Yes, Anplom Street, where obviously there's a request for reconstruction of the road. So the reconstruction of the road is then requested for Anplom Street. But then obviously I'm also going to look at that. It might also be done mostly as a resurfacing, but then we'll also look at what I've asked the department to then go and investigate as to how it looks like and what their opinions are. Is that would we then need a street light? I mean, a street resurfacing, or it would need a complete reconstruction. So like those are the things that we'll then ask them to then have. So, and then what we then look at furthermore is that we then take at the other issue of, I think this issue, obviously I'll have to consult with the residents because I've noticed on the estate group that they have the request for controlled access. So obviously they want to have controlled access on that. So they've started on their side as well, but then we'll also look at it as to where else council can then contribute and assist them in those requests. So those are the 5 requests that we then have on the IDP. The allocation, budget allocation, what is the good news is that this council has allocated or is planning to spend over the next 3 years, 75 million rand on the upgrading of the sewer system. So this is something that has been on the IDP for, I can date back even when I was just an ordinary member of the ward committee of Ward 38 with former councillors, is that this has been even before 2011 that it has been on the IDP. But it's also good to see that we then have at least a budget. So now, just because there's a budget allocation, and this is where then my work then comes into then saying, is to then say, okay, there's a budget allocation. What is the plans and when are you planning to receive that money? Because obviously there could be a budget allocation or it could be a plan to spend that budget. But then if you don't have physically the money, that it might sound nice for me to say, council is looking to spend 75 million rand over the next 3 years on sewer upgrade. Now, the problem is then we then have a problem where we then say, okay, look, that is a problem, but we then can talk about and have other discussion to then say, all right, cool. We then have a problem in terms of you not having the funds. So that's why that item is not going to be removed on the IDP as well as any other place before there is a physical work to actually start upgrading the sewer system. And I think for those of you who have been, you've been here and you know very well that the issues that are then facing with the sewer system, especially during rainy seasons, are very dire. You know, they are perpetuated, especially during those times. So this is why all of these things. So our next step is then to do this. My next step is, especially as a councillor, is then to do this. Firstly, on the issue of taking the issue of streetlights, is then to go back and say, now we are in the new financial year. How much money do we then have allocated for the streetlights in particular? Then how quick can we expect the outstanding streetlights that we have then been waiting for as the residents? And it's not just residents of Ward 38. We're not talking about residents of only Alberton. We're talking about the residents of the entire city. To then say every resident across the city who is contributing towards this budget is waiting for streetlights to then be addressed. How long can we then expect for that issue to then be addressed? So that's why we then are going to then go to the department and say, this is what we want to see. and how are you planning to do that? What I'll then do is also through this platform and give you feedback as to on the area part of these things, that how do we then address these matters? So in a public meeting, and I must be very clear and to manage expectations as well, in a public meeting such as this one, it is here for the intent to give you update on area specific matters. And I mean, I do appreciate there's a lot of individual matters as well. We're looking at area specific matters. And much as the next point that I'm going to then cover doesn't speak to an area specific matter, but it is an area specific matter in the sense that a group of residents, especially from Valhart Street as well as Musselsport Street, have then come to me and said, look, there's an open field, especially just off the Klip River Road, where there's an open field where people can easily access the ward, where they want to see that fence. So their issue will then be addressed through a petition they've submitted to me. I think in this week, they've submitted to me in this week that they would then want to petition council to then have a fence to make sure that their property is protected, obviously, with the break-ins that they've then been having over some time now. And I know about it, and we've had discussion around it unfortunately, with Rand Water not coming to the party as before, because that open piece of servitude actually belongs to Rand Water. So what we're trying to then try and get council to do on the part where it's not the Rand Water servitude, they can at least fence it off. So obviously we starting with that process, and I want to be very, very clear that it is a process that we are starting. Going to have a council meeting in the end of July. That's when this petition will then be logged officially in the system. Then so that we can then start with the thing. But what I will do is not only through other methods, I will then also give people an opportunity to then say, all right, this is what we have done and where we are in terms of the process. You remember the way I said, I feel very strongly that we must have a feedback mechanism, especially when it comes to public participation, that we are then able to run these things and we are then able to address every single issue that is then coming to our case. So what I'm going to do now is that I see there's already issues that are raised from Facebook. I see Dion Turin. I think I've been speaking to you on email in this week, Dion. Thank you for joining in the meeting. So then you say, all due respect, you're worried about bright facilities, but you cannot help sort out basic electricity queries from the energy department. I think, Dion, let's be very frank and very clear, because I don't want to then expose and bring out and flight the emails that were going on around. I do appreciate, firstly, that, and you would have then seen just before this meeting, if you checked your emails, that I would then have responded with a much sterner tone to the emails to then say, look, this morning, they promised you that they're going to fix your electricity. They still haven't done that. I then have responded and say, look, can you please then assist this resident? Because they've then been waiting for these things. But then I must also then, I'm not worried about private facilities. I think we must also understand that out of 25,000 residents, you all have different needs. I can't then say somebody's needs is less important than the other person. I'll be very unfair on every resident. What I will then do is then say, okay, what do I then address first? So obviously, on an issue of electricity, and let me come back to the basic electricity, for example, what I've then been driving with council. This is why I've then been vehemently driving the fact that they should then not change the turnaround time from being currently, the city says they give themselves 24 hours to address a fault on electricity. Now they're looking to change that from 24 hours to 7 days. And I'm then saying, no, it is unfair on residents to stay. I don't even think any one of these people that are then saying all these people that are then saying, you know what, um, we want to have a turnaround time of 7 days. Now they might come back and say, no, we are just making sure that we comply. But then what it also means is that we can then not hold them to account before 7 days. And I think that is not acceptable. I think for me personally, it is something that I will really raise vehemently should the council look to still continue with such a turnaround time. Because already when I speak, obviously that will take priority, Dion, because it will be something that takes priority to then say, you know, now we must then start speaking and say, let's start key areas. And one of the things that I'm looking at in the next round of the IDP consideration is then to then say, okay, fine. We are then looking at the issue of let me use the gated community issue. If that is sufficiently sorted out, and thank goodness for private intervention as well, because like that's also some of the things that you can then do as residents. So thanks, if we then are satisfied as a ward committee as well, to then say, okay, we can remove this. What I want to then be including is to say, you then remember that I'm pretty sure you remember that not so long ago, we had 2 days, in fact, 3 days, where there was power outage. The one time, not just 3 days, but the one time we actually ended up being with residents ended up being without power for over 48 hours, which is already more than the turnaround time that currently exists. So I'm then saying, okay, because you are giving the issues and saying it's cable faults and faults at the substations, let us then look at upgrading those substations. Let us then look at, council keeps repeatedly saying we have old infrastructure, but where is your plan to gradually, even if you don't upgrade every substation within one time, we then can start working gradually at addressing those things. So you then quoted to see my full work at play. Please do attend public meetings where I can give regularly feedback on area issues, how I represent you in council. I think this has been a clear indication of how that is at play. So because now, Dion, I can appreciate, look, you had an expectation and you were expecting a certain response from that and you didn't get that. And I can take that. But however, what we then have to then agree on is to then say, as you would have seen and as I've presented, that where I then saw that there's inaction from the city side, I then step in and say, guys, you are then now misleading this resident. You now need to then start assisting them. Hopefully, they actually switch on your power as soon as possible because I mean you need it and you can't continue making alternative plans while you're waiting for council to then address your issues. All right. I have seen some on the chats. You're more than welcome to also raise your hand. I'll give you a platform to speak. So obviously, Shanae, just saying, acknowledging Valhart's and Muscle Sports request. So yeah, obviously, Shanae, as I've indicated, that it is going to be a process, but I will take you through. I endeavor to take you through the process, and you're more than welcome to then come back to me and say, Councillor, what is the latest update? And if I do have any new information that I had not shared and I have it at the time, then I would then obviously be in a position where I can then take it even further and then give you that feedback. But I do commit that because yes, it's located where you guys are, but it has a potential impact for the rest of the area as well. And I'm pretty sure you can appreciate that. Yeah, that is from my side and my report back. I try and not give my report back too detailed, but the one thing that I can then say is that you're more than welcome to raise your hand and speak. Then we can then speak from, we can then take that. As much as I can look at chat, rather I'm manning this whole thing myself. So Okay, so Hank, as I've explained fully that when I'm sure you're talking about issues being closed before they were actually addressed, and also issues that are taking long to be closed. So that is the reason that they gave me. It's not the reason that I'm giving you. I'm relaying the information that was given. And I think when I also spoke, I said I also don't actually, I'm not sold on that reason. Because I mean, you can tell me it's a glitch, but explain the glitch. And that question never was answered because they could not explain what the glitch is. Because, and if there is a glitch, what have you done to actually address the glitch? So that those are the kind of things that you then look at to say, okay, there is a glitch, fine. But what have you done? What is the glitch then? So those are the kind of things that's why I'm explaining to you that it is not me, I'm giving you the response that was then given to me on, as a counselor who's asked that question about the glitch on the so basically on the devices that they use to report. So the yeah, so those are the things that I said. Guys, please, I know there's a chat, but if you're on the Zoom platform, please feel free to raise your hand. It's much easier for me to let you pick up than have to read what you're saying. Thank you. But I see John also. So please, will you advise on the turnover times on streetlights? Your previous efforts have gone a long way in fixing 90% of our streetlights, but still some are off. Yeah, look, so those turnaround times, I don't want to stand here or sit here and say, this is the turnaround time. What I can endeavor to do, Dion, is to then say on the outstanding streetlights, to then try and get, and unfortunately, I get, especially the official that actually deals with streetlights, and I've tried to raise, even with his manager, say, I appreciate that, people do not want to overcommit, but can an official stop just saying the issue will be addressed ASAP? What is ASAP? Already a resident is waiting 3 years without streetlights. Already 3 years. And the official just said, no, I'll do it ASAP. ASAP, 3 years later, does not help you, does not help me, does not help anyone. So we then need to then start looking at those things. Right, I'm gonna take Hank. Hank, speak, and then yeah, you can unmute and then speak.
I know you're frustrated with me, but I'm going to keep on because they say if you repeat it enough, it will become the truth. The streetlight issue has been going on for 2, probably more years. I've overloaded you with facts. Nothing has happened. How do we? And at one stage, I said to you, there's a crisis with streetlights, and you said to me, there's no report in front of the council to say there's a crisis with streetlights. How do I convince you there's a crisis with streetlights and you've got to do something? My personal feeling, and I said it to you last time, I'll be short now. It's no use talking to the MMC. The HODs are playing games. The same with the closing of those faults. Now remember, my concern with closing of the faults, to measure is to know. If you close faults, nobody's knowing what's going on. You cannot prove there's a crisis with the streetlights. Just accept my frustration. I'm telling you, there's a crisis with streetlights. Thanks, Councillor.
And thanks so much for raising it again. And I'm gonna reiterate exactly what I've just said then now. I think in both the response in the physical meeting that you are there and the response of this meeting right now, what I'm going to then say to you is exactly the same thing, is that maybe I didn't word it as crisis after the report from the MMC, right? Now, protocol-wise, I cannot just walk into HOD. I can. Only if, it can't be on such things because the MMC responsible takes the hit on that, and I then have to follow protocol in that case. And I could not use that information of no globes So if I then say to you, there's no globes for streetlights, that actually spells out crisis, as you say. You know, it's not been 2 years even, it's been more than 3 years. There's streetlights that have been off, that have never been repaired for more than 3 years. And this is why I then also say, I also don't take officials responding and saying ASAP on an issue that I'm saying, this has been off for 3 years. No, I'll do it ASAP. What does that mean? So, Hank, I do appreciate your frustration. The same frustration is mine. So I'm able to then, you know, try and keep my cool to a certain level because I must then, you know, get to cracks of the matter. And like I said in the previous meeting, in the physical meeting, is that I then say, right, now I then say, we then want this done. Because MMC, your HOD is not coming out with the truth. Because imagine if I went to the HOD and because the HOD could have told me the same story. All right. So, but I could not go public with that information because that would be actually irresponsible for me as a councillor. Right. So what we then do is that's why I then said the solution then is, okay, fine. You know what I've been noting is that your budget is not enough. That's the first thing. Let's start there. That's why you can't even manage it. Secondly, even though you've been there and your budget might not be enough, you have a culture of not attending to these things. And that for me becomes a really, really, really big problem. To then say, okay, let's change the system. Now, unfortunately, and here's the thing, yes, I understand. We want this, and also like, you know, I would also have the same expectation and sometimes I do, is that I speak now, action follows. Now, unfortunately, it's not always like that. But then this is where then I then say, okay, fine. How do we then collaborate to help each other find solutions that work for all of us? Especially when it comes to the saying, because I did respond to an MMC. I said, MMC, your HODs are not giving you the full truth. Get them to give you the full truth. Because you can't tell me that, for example, one of the problems with the streetlights is them being vandalized. I said, okay, if your streetlights are being vandalized, please present to me case numbers that you've reported to the police station. And one of the things, oh, no, we don't have case numbers. I was like, but how does somebody vandalize your infrastructure? And I say, what is your plan to protect it? You can't even give me clear numbers. I mean, it does not make sense. If somebody is being breaking, that's why, and sorry, residents from Valhards and Musselspruit, I now use you as an example, is to say, these residents have then said, no, this is happening. Let's approach the councillor for assistance on this matter. And it's not the first time. Yes, it's coming back to me again. This time it's coming back electronically. They would then tell you that I was with them at the corner of Musselspruit as well as Valhards, discussing some of the same issue that then happened. And unfortunately, since then, because the first point was to then say, Reinhardt, take responsibility. Don't take responsibility. Now we are trying to get council. Maybe council will then assist us. You follow what I'm saying? So what I'm then saying is that when we address these issues, we address them, and sometimes it takes patience. Sometimes, yes, we say, fix this, it gets fixed immediately. So, and I know it is frustrating. What do we then do then? Because I can tell you right now, and once we do all of these things, and I can show you, not because it's me, but some of these steps that I've taken, it's a few steps further than most people would have then taken. To then say, you know, for somebody else would have said, you know, the turnaround time, you're increasing it so that you made it. No, I'm not taking that. Because I even asked a question regarding turnaround times, Hank, to then say, what happens if you don't meet the turnaround time? Are you going to change it as well? No. You can't keep dropping the standard to make yourself look like you're performing. No. You've got to then commit to delivering on a high standards. Yes. Because I mean, streetlights are an issue. When you then said to me, it's a crisis, I then said, no. At that time, I did not have evidence of a crisis. This is why I then waited for responses from the MMC, which confirmed your statement and my suspicion. So we are, like I said to you, we are on the same side. You might not think that I am, but it is a patience game from time to time. Dion, again. Dion?
Hi, Councillor.
Yes.
Apologies if I sound a little bit naive. I just want to get the full story here.
Mm.
In regards to the area being closed off on the corner of Volhart and Marshallspoort, if I understand correctly, the servitude belongs to Rand Water, and we would need Rand Water's permission if we were to erect a fence there. You mentioned earlier that on the council side, we are trying to do something. Does that mean, is there any way that private funds can be raised and a wall erected there legally? Is that not a simpler choice? Maybe is that something to look at, or should we just stick to it and hope that council comes through?
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't want to, in an official public meeting, advocate for any legal. So look, Dion. So if we then say, on your issue of Valhalla, if we then say, okay, we are going to look at raising funds yourself, privately so. All you just need is permission for somebody to allow you to do that. No, council is not unreasonable. In fact, you'll be actually helping council and probably Rand Water for that matter. The only thing that, even if council, because council can do it, the only thing that they'll have to ask Rand Water, say, listen, where would you want an access point? Because this is obviously your servitude. Because what they can do it is like they can do it on the part where it's not literally right bang in the middle. But the first thing is not being naive, but like the first that I would have hoped is that by now, I would have hoped that Rand Water actually came to the party, and they somehow not seeming interested to come to the party, because they also admitted that, yes, they had a wall there and they still need to replace it. But you say you still need to replace it until how long do you wait? So what I would then do is, like, I wouldn't say put up money to put it without a permission. That I wouldn't advise you to do. I think even when I spoke to you in one of the meetings, when that suggestion came, I said, well, then I don't know about it. So I can't be said to say I've given you permission. I can't give you that permission. I wish I could. But I think what I would then advise you is to say, we will put up the money, Rand Water Council, can you allow us to build it? Then obviously the petition then gets worded differently, or in fact, we can even send it out differently if that is the case. Does that cover you, Dion?
Yes, thank you. I think First Prize will be hoping that Rand Water does it themselves, but
Yes.
as an
Yeah.
alternative, if we don't come right, we can maybe look at
Yes.
that as an
Yeah.
alternative.
Okay. No, thanks so much, Dion. Okay, Hank again.
Be real quick. Talking about a turnaround time, if the measurement system don't work, the turnaround time is absolutely nonsensical, because you can't measure. It can give you any date because you can't measure. The second point is, and I've told you before, all the streetlights that I've reported to you are not globe issues. They're other issues. They're not globe issues. Now, my question is, what does the HOD say? What is his staff doing if they haven't got money for material? What do they do all day if they haven't got money for material? I said I'll be short. I think that's enough said. Thanks. Thanks for your patience, Councillor.
No problem, Hank. I'm here to be patient. So look, I understand, and I get your frustration, and I agree with your frustration. So as much as I said globes, so globes was used as the. It's actually ridiculous that a street light is off because there's no globes. So on your issues, obviously, then you've got bigger issues on the streetlights that you then reported of. Some of them vandalism, yes, fine, but you don't have reported cases. So what are you doing? You know, what are you looking at? This is why I'm gonna have the similar approach with roads, with the energy department to then say, 1st of July, new budget kicks in. How much? Well, obviously not necessarily on the 1st of July, but what is our expectations? These streetlights were reported, they're still off. What is going on? When can we then expect money? Because the last time you said you don't have budget. So now you can't say you don't have budget because we've literally just given you budget, brand new, 1st of July. We've approved budget. Council has approved budget earlier this month. So because I've done that with roads, and that's where we could see quite a number of roads being resurfaced in the area. Because I think sometimes, departments, they sort of like, have a laid back and see what they can do whenever they can do. But I actually think some of these things, I mean, it's the bread and butter things. So, yeah. So, Shanae, you spoke about solar streetlights. So I have actually started speaking to the, industry experts regarding that, because one of the things I'm also a fan of solar streetlights in particular. It's not only based on them not being broken or whatever the case may be. It's also based on the fact that we have a real problem, whether we've been shielded from load shedding for some reason, I don't know, or we're still being shielded from load shedding for other reasons, I don't know. But the intent of having solar streetlights, it's actually a good suggestion, because then we ease the load on load shedding. So what I then spoke to industry experts to say, look, how would this look like? What would you then need? Would you then need, would we as council look to go into a private partnership with industries to help us do that? And I know in certain areas it's been done in a phased approach. So in certain areas, in fact, they are putting up solar streetlights. They're not putting up the streetlights that we currently have. That's what they then putting up. So what I would then want to do is then take to council and say, look, you're already doing your first approach on this. Can we then expedite it even quicker, especially in areas that have not had working streetlights for more than 3 years? Then we can then have about those kind of conversations. Because once we have those kind of conversations on the table, then we are then getting to a point where we then having to then say, okay, cool. We also contributing towards solutions in this area. Okay, I hope that can be covered. So you can, but then you can do it. You still need permission from council, because that's just simple. Like I said, it sounds like council will say no. Council will not say no. They just need to know, okay, you were planning to do a solar light outside your area. Okay, how are you planning to do it? And then they can give you that permission. What we don't want is then council penalizing you for doing something good for yourself, because I wouldn't want that. I would rather want, unless if they say no and then you still do it, I mean, that's up to you. I'm not gonna dictate to you. But then you would have then covered yourself and say, look, I can then put up a solar light outside, or a group of you in the area say we are contributing towards this. We can then put up solar lights on a street. So, but then you then need to do it. Okay, so what you then need to do, Shanae, is that I think there might need to be a rewording of the request for even the fencing. I'll just look at it and then advise you. If you then write both of them together as a request to council for you to have permission to do that, because you'll remember a few years back, your streets were also affected, where you had no electricity for over 60 hours, where I then intervened by ensuring that giving Stephen from the security, fourth dimension, from the security company, to the contact details of the city manager, then that was how that permission was then granted for the security company to also monitor the substations, because at that time I think they claimed vandalism. So that's why I then said no, but like, yes, people that are willing, they've got the resources, they just need to be given permission to go look after our substations, and we're able to get that. I'm pretty sure we can get it right with every other thing. Okay. Is that all? I don't see any chats. I don't see any, yeah, there's nothing on Facebook. But thank you everyone. But I must also reiterate that, you know, these meetings are intended to also, you know, what we do in these meetings, the intention is to make sure that you as a resident are kept abreast. Like, I know not all the answer will be yes, you can do that, but then there will be an explanation why. Like, I would also want an explanation why. Not all answers, because I might need to still come back and verify certain answers. Like, I've had to go back and verify answers on streetlights that Hank is now raising again. But I will give you a chance now, Hank. So those are the things that these meetings, what we then do is we track what have we been saying, because I can come back 5 years and say I've done X, Y, Z. I don't want to come back every 5 years and say I've done X, Y, Z. Meanwhile, you haven't seen any of that being done. I want to then, let's go on a journey, monthly basis, and then or every quarter we can be in person, where we can discuss the issues that affect you, the resident. Hank? Yes, Hank?
Just a quick one. At the last meeting, somebody else raised it. And I can guarantee you, traffic lights are going the same way street lights. You can go to critical traffic lights and you'll find 50% of the lights are out. And somebody else also raised it at your last meeting. That's just a heads up. Those guys are going the same routes as street lights. Thanks, Councillor.
No problem, man. Thanks so much for raising all of this. This is why I'm then saying to you, I'd rather, like, even if we get frustrated with each other, let's work through every single challenge that we then face together, because you are the residents here. I'm the councillor. My interest is to make sure that we then serve you as best as possible. Thank you very much, everyone.